You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Michael Osborne, host of the podcast Famous and Gravy, biographies from a different point of view. Katie and Nathan asked me to warn you that they use strong language on their show. If you like cursing and strong language, then you are in the right place. On Famous and Gravy, we try to keep it a little clean, but we also sometimes curse. On every episode of Famous and Gravy, we choose a dead celebrity, and we ask the question, would you want that life? It's a pop culture biography podcast with an empathetic twist. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. But for now, enjoy this episode of Queens.
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about women in history. Hey, Nathan.
Katie.
Hello.
Ooh.
I am traveling, and I was like, no. I can't let my life get in the way of telling Catherine Parr's story.
I wouldn't be able to either.
People were pumped about this story, so I was like, we can't make the people wait.
I know. There would be a mass revolution.
There might be mayhem in the streets if
Yeah.
people couldn't hear the rest of this story sooner rather than later. So there's not really a great setup in my hotel room, so I'm coming to you from the ironing board used as a makeshift desk.
That is a nice one. Ironing board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ingenuity, you know?
I never said you weren't ingenious, and
So should we just get into it?
I can't wait. Let's do it.
Okay, so where did we leave off?
Henry VIII first decided he was interested in the newly widowed Catherine Parr. Catherine actually pretty openly resisted that. What
Yeah.
she didn't know is that Henry loves a lady that plays hard to get.
I mean, we saw that in both the Anne Boleyn and the Jane Seymour episode, right? Like, do you
Mhm.
remember? Well, Anne Boleyn probably was like, well, you literally were just fucking my sister yesterday. So maybe she actually wasn't interested. Whereas Jane Seymour, her whole thing, if y'all haven't listened to that episode or don't know that story, Henry VIII gave her a gift of money. And she basically threw herself to her knees and was like, I do not want to tarnish my good name. I think she was very much playing hard to get because that is immediate boner alert for Henry VIII. But the difference in Jane Seymour and maybe Anne Boleyn is that Catherine Parr definitely did not want to be God.
Yeah, she supposedly told Henry, it were better to be your mistress than your wife. We've heard that quote before, at least I have. Now, Henry took that as Catherine being modest, as narcissist Henry VIII would. But like her saying, I'm not worthy of being queen, right? That's what he heard. But in actuality, she's probably more along the lines of, you know what? Mistresses don't get their heads cut off, crazy bitch.
You've had several mistresses and they've lived long lives or died of natural causes. You've had 5 wives and 2 of them got their heads cut off. I don't love those odds.
Favor.
Yes. Eventually, Catherine, though, did start to look at this through a different lens. She would later say that she prayed on it. She thought God was telling her, like, you becoming queen serves a bigger purpose. It's not about you, honey. Like, it's the purpose. It's the end goal.
Okay, let's do some scene setting regarding religion in the 16th century in England. England had broken with the Pope, so they were Catholic no more. And I don't know, don't hate me. However, despite Lutheranism and the whole Reformation catching on in parts of Europe, England was not Protestant either. They were Catholic. either. And it
Mhm.
was heresy to be like overwhelmingly, like Catholic or Protestant. So it's like, where do you fit into this equation?
Hey, that call me crazy, but this sounds like it could get really tricky in a time in history where you could get executed for heresy.
Sure was.
Ding, ding, ding. Correct.
Yeah. We could spend the whole episode on this very complicated political and religious state in England at the time. But what you really need to know is that Catherine is very much anti-Catholic and pro-reformist. So she thinks God is telling her that this is her chance to serve a higher purpose. Also, I can just imagine God being like, hey, girl, let's get this guy to stop cutting people's heads off, okay?
Hey.
Yeah. And also, she's like, oh, God told me to make England Protestant.
Yeah. So Catherine Parr and Henry VIII were married on July 12th, 1543. And we've talked about on this show several times since this is his sixth wedding that we've covered. Henry loved a small affair. But this wedding, compared to many of his others, was slightly larger. It had a whole like 20 or 30 attendees.
Oh, wow. So this
For-
is like the royal wedding for Henry VIII.
For Henry VIII, it's a big wedding. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's noteworthy that this wedding was so quote unquote big because Catherine insisted on all of Henry VIII's kids to be there, which includes his daughter Elizabeth, his child with Anne Boleyn.
Mhm.
And okay, if you don't know anything about Elizabeth's story, we'll get to it. Promise.
Promise.
Elizabeth was usually excluded from pretty much any sort of royal affair. So the fact that Catherine Parr was like, well, hey, Henry, how about we actually have all of your kids here? That's a big deal.
Right. Okay. New character alert. One of the guides in attendance at the wedding, I've read several different accounts. Some people say this guy officiated their wedding, and some people say he was just there. But either way, we're meeting a new guy. His name is Stephen Gardiner. And Bishop Stevie G was very powerful at court, but he was also very, very traditional. The court was kind of, the court was kind of seeing a swing. England was seeing a bit of a swing back to the traditionalists, the conservatives being kind of more of the norm. He wanted to roll back all the reformist policies. He wanted to bring England back to being cool with the Pope again. His hope was that after Henry VIII died, they could just go back to the Pope and be like, sorry about that, and just go back.
Right. Oh, a tricky situation.
Mm.
And Gardner, who barely knows Catherine, already has some preconceived notions on her. Namely, he's assuming that since she is from the North and was married to a guy who took part in the Pilgrimage of Grace, that she's going to be super Catholic and traditional.
Mhm.
Ruh-roh, Bishop Steve, you're in for a world of disappointment.
Yep. Now, once Catherine is set up as queen, her first order of business is to make the court a family affair. And I actually love this because this family is so fucking dysfunctional and has been for such a long time. So, well, first of all, she appoints her sister and her cousins as her main ladies in waiting. So she's also raising up her own family. She's not the only one in the family that gets a promotion in status. And then she brings Henry's niece, Margaret Douglas, in as one of her ladies at court as well. And she just is like, she's bringing together these families, which I feel like is really normal. And when like families come together in a normal marriage type situation, and kind of telling people, just setting the precedent of like, we're not doing all of this tacky Jerry Springer family shit. We are gonna be a unit now. Do you know what I mean?
Cohesive unit. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
where as we see like a lot with like bastard children and even children of legitimate marriages, they end up like being outcasts, right? Like they end up being banished to other places, and for her to come back and be like, no, we're all
We're all
one family. Everybody's one unit. That's huge.
Also, it's smart because we all know Henry's, we'll talk about it more in a minute. He's not long for this world, and everybody knew that because he's not taking good care of himself. He's very
Yeah.
sick all the time. She's also making sure that she's like, I don't know what fucking way the wind's gonna blow. Maybe these kids that are quote unquote not legitimate might end up with some power. How about I just be friendly to all of them?
That's a very strategic thing for her to do too,
I
right?
think it could be both. It could be both.
Why can't it be both?
Why
Like
can't it
that's
be both? Yeah.
like she can be using all of that to her advantage.
She could actually care about these kids and want them to be involved and have a better life. And she could also be like, and then remember me when you're in power.
Yeah. She's already really close to Henry's eldest daughter, Mary, but she's also bringing in his middle child, Elizabeth. And that's huge.
Yeah.
Elizabeth's mother, Anne Boleyn, executed when Elizabeth was only 3 years old. So she's now about 9. And like I kind of alluded to earlier, she has been neglected, isolated, treated like shit, in terms of royal people. She should not have been treated that way as the king's daughter. And that was all since Anne Boleyn's execution.
And when we look at, because, we've talked about them all. So obviously, Jane Seymour wanted nothing to do with Elizabeth. And then Anne of Cleves didn't get it. Like, Anne of Cleves didn't even want to talk to Mary because she was considered illegitimate. Like, she thought it was like an offense. Like, even though Mary was in good standing with the king, she was like, why do you want me to?
It's a different culture, too. It, again, kind of circles back to what we were talking about, how whenever you're illegitimate, you're a completely
an
different...
outcast.
Yeah, you're an outcast, yeah.
The only other wife that has given Elizabeth any attention was Catherine Howard, but Catherine Howard was also her cousin. It was nice of her to do that, but also Catherine Howard wasn't particularly influential. I think Henry VIII respected Catherine Parr's intellect in a way that poor baby Catherine Howard just never got to be in that kind of relationship. But anyway.
Look at this rabbit hole. Love it.
Look at it. Anyway, so Catherine Parr going to Elizabeth and being like, no, you are wanted here. I want you here. I want to act as a mother figure to you. I want to be your friend, your mother. I want you to trust me. Elizabeth would have, I'm getting a little bit emotional just thinking about it.
Right.
And so Elizabeth would have been like, oh my God, yes.
Finally.
So happy to be included and to be loved. She's never felt like that before. And now the head bitch in charge at court is actually taking an interest in it. Because like Catherine was like, yeah, I want you here. And yeah, it probably was like a performative level. But then she was actually then going to Elizabeth and being like, so tell me about your interest. And she's like, no one's really asked me about that before,
I don't know what I like. Wait, what?
What do you want me to like?
Yeah, and she takes a huge role in shaping young Elizabeth. She's like, hey, Henry, you know what? How about I take over Elizabeth's education? And Henry, just being a royal douchebag, basically is like, sure, I guess, if you want. I don't know why he's from Texas, but he is. And hey, spoiler alert, the future Elizabeth the First was a fucking amazingly educated woman. And guess who we can thank for that?
So it wasn't just the girls either. So Henry had a 6-year-old son named Edward. Prince Edward's education was taken care of. So Catherine Parr really didn't have a role there. But that doesn't mean that his emotional side of his life had ever been given a whole lot of thought. This little boy is being raised like in a glass case almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't touch him, just anything, just trying to keep him safe. Oh my God, trying to keep him safe.
It reminds me of Alexandra Feodorovna and baby hemophiliac.
Baby hemophilia, yeah. What was his name? Alexei.
Baby hemophiliac, Alexei.
Baby hemophiliac, Alexei. No, but Alexei at least still had a mother that loved him, whereas Edward's education and health are being taken care of. But I don't know before Catherine stepped into the picture if anybody was really just trying to nurture that emotional side of him. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Treat him like a normal person, you mean? Like, give him
Yes.
affection, like, instead of being, "Oh my gosh, it's the prince." It's like, "Oh,
Just being
no,
like, "Hey,
how's
baby."
your day?" Again, it's like with
Yeah.
Elizabeth, she's being
Yeah.
like, "What do you like?" She's treating them like humans, and they're used to being treated like gods. And so
Yeah.
it's good that they have that sort of parental figure to be like, "Oh, no, honey, you're still kinda human. Like, you still
Yeah.
need emotional stuff here."
Exactly. And Catherine Parr and him actually developed this really, really sweet relationship. And he started referring her to her as mother, you know? And so when Catherine Parr shows up and she was like, if you feel like you need a mother figure, I'm here. He was just like, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they had a very loving relationship. And I think that's very sweet.
Yeah, Catherine was so focused on making this dysfunctional family actually put some effort into acting like a real royal family or loving royal family. And y'all, it worked so well that Henry even put his daughter Elizabeth back into the line of
And
succession
Mary. Mary
and
and
Mary
Elizabeth were
both
both out. Yeah.
and put both of them in there. So, whoa, well, let's give some hats off to Catherine.
They are back, baby. I love this. I love that the whole family is acting friendly and civil for once. I think that's lovely.
I do too. I think it's like so beautiful that finally, because Henry VIII is known for tumultuous, crazy family. And it's finally the time where I really do feel like God came out of the sky and was like, Catherine, make this bitch less crazy, please.
Make them talk to each other.
She's
Yeah.
like, cool.
Cool. You know who else thought this was lovely?
Who?
Fucking everyone.
Oh,
Just
well, that makes
everyone.
sense. Yeah.
Catherine Parr was, at least in the first couple, like 2 years of her queenship, very popular with just about everybody. The court, all the people at court were like, things seem a little bit chiller. The ambassadors, they can bring their wives now without having to worry about the vibes being weird. And also, like, the regular folks liked her too because she comes from like the country. And so, just like, she just kind of ticked the boxes for everyone. She was kind, she was smart, she was charming, and she seemed to give a fuck.
And remember, Henry is not in great health at this point in
Right.
his life. That stanky leg be stankin'.
Oh, we stinking.
So it was important to have a popular wife because
Mm.
when Henry got sick, Catherine would need to step in and, entertain the diplomats and their wives and be like, hey, look over here. And,
Yeah.
whoever else had an appointment with the king, she would just kind of distract and schmooze and have fun with. So, yeah.
That is such an important part of being queen, is just being charming.
It's like the first time outside of Catherine of Aragon that we have a actual queen who's not in like crazy drama with Henry VIII and is like
Who's
actually making stuff
who's
happen.
who's not divisive. She's not
Yeah,
divisive.
exactly.
I guess you could say at some point, like at the very early point, Catherine Howard, she wasn't respected like this because she was just so young.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many of them were just so divisive. Anne Boleyn, because of if you don't know why Anne Boleyn was divisive, go back. Go
Yeah.
back. Jane Seymour, it's because it's like, you married this woman 11 days after cutting the head off of your last wife.
So there
and
was drama around that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, no, totally. I totally agree.
Speaking of Henry's health, let's do some myth busting. There is this very common misconception of Catherine Parr as the nurse or the caregiver to Henry VIII in his final days. And okay, yeah, he was sick, but that story just doesn't make sense because Henry
No.
VIII had real, actual doctors that were,
Right.
well practiced. Why would they just be like, oh yeah, listen to this lady who has no experience in medicine? That wouldn't happen. No.
No, and also sexism. So they'd be like, a woman doctor?
I
Like,
mean,
so.
that is probably even bigger than the other one.
Yeah. Yeah, around the Victorian time is when people started, for some reason, saying, oh, he just wanted a wife that could nurse him. She never did any nursing. Now, she did help Henry keep his mind off of his pains, but with conversation, by keeping him busy. which, oh my God, anytime I've like ever been sick or
Bedridden.
or even if it's just like really bad period cramps or something, it's like, talk to me, help me think about anything else. So I totally get this.
Yeah.
And so when it was just the two of them or a small group of well-trusted people, friends and family, Henry would often ask Catherine what she thought about political matters or what she thought about theological issues. And Catherine and Henry would have these friendly, spirited debates, but they could get quite heated, but it was always in good fun.
Yeah. So she's keeping him entertained
Yeah.
and
Some people like to argue.
more debate, less head choppy. How about that? So
Yes, friendly debates. But some people, I feel like I don't really like to debate with my friends, but some people do. And so they just fell into that and that worked for them.
And hey, if you can squeeze in a few of my actual opinions and beliefs along the way
Exactly.
and try to get him to kind of see where we should be going, I feel like it's a big win-win strategy thing for
Win-win.
Catherine Parr.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a quick break. Let you hear from our sponsors, and then we're going to be back. Everything is so good right now. Nothing could possibly go wrong, right?
And that's when things go wrong.
All right. We will be right back.
That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
We're back.
Yes, we
and
are.
Things might get a little shitty. So let's switch gears from the happy-go-lucky parade that we were in and discuss one of Henry VIII's favorite things, war with France. I feel like that's an England thing.
He also liked war with Scotland, but war with France, that got him
So
going.
much more. Can't get enough of that war with France. I don't know why Texas
War with France.
and Henry are one and the same.
Henry VIII is from Beaumont.
Yes.
Okay?
So in the summer of 1544, he had a chance to do what he was, most passionate about in life. Katie, do you have any guesses?
Ooh, beheading his relatives.
Wrong.
Oh, shit. War with France.
Ah ha ha, bingo.
Got it. It has been a minute since he's left the country. When the king is gone to France to do some war, he has to appoint a regent. Y'all, he appoints Catherine. And this is huge. This is such a big deal. Out of all his wives, he has only ever appointed Catherine of Aragon as a regent before. And so we think Catherine Parr would have been fucking stoked at this opportunity and also honored to fulfill a role that her namesake had fulfilled before.
It's a circle of wives.
Circle of wives. It's the wheel of Catherines.
So Catherine honestly would have been honored for this and totally excited to prove herself. This regency was just, only for a few months, but she's looking at this as a trial run. If she knocks this out of the Regency Park, maybe she'll have another chance to do it again one day.
Yeah. So like we said, Henry VIII's health, not fantastic. It was assumed that he was going to die well before his son Edward, who at this point is 6, reaches his majority, before he's an adult. So Edward's going to need a regent. And mothers, historically, that is the only way that women can really rock power, mothers acting as regents for their sons. And Edward already views her as his mother at this point. And so if she gets this regency experience under her belt, she's going to be an obvious choice, right?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Now, this regency wasn't long. So just from July to September, 1/4. She just took over 1/4 of England.
The quarter queen.
The quarter queen. But during that time, no uprisings, no Karens filed a complaint, no major fallouts, nothing.
Right?
So
Yeah.
Henry returns to England, and it's the same place that he left it, which, in terms of running a regency, is a really good thing.
Hey, yeah. He's got nothing to complain about. So if you're keeping count, Catherine is fucking knocking it out of the park like no other queen has in a minute. She is bringing the royal family together, like bringing peace amongst the royal family. She's brought respect back to the title of queen. She doesn't have a sniff of any kind of scandal. She has no scandal or anything tied to her. She just ran the country in a regency for a quarter without issue. So on paper, all she does is win, 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 no matter what. Yes, exactly.
And you know what she's going to do next?
What?
Be the first queen of England to be a published author. Mic drop boom.
Ooh, but love this. In her life, Catherine would publish 3 books. And she would be the first published author, at least that we know of, like in her own name, until Victoria. All of them, the first one that she published was anonymously or under a pen name or something. But all of them were super, super religious text and as they came out, they got increasingly more Protestant. So why don't we take a couple of seconds to kind of discuss, I feel like we kind of know the difference between Protestant and Catholic now, but in the year 2025, I feel like Protestants and Catholics are friends and marry each other all the time, and it's just not a big deal. Why don't we take a quick look at what Catherine believed so we can better understand why she thought it was so important to push?
Yeah. So one huge difference between Catholics and Protestants is the belief that you need the clergy. Whereas Catherine, most Protestants, they believe that you on your own, you can have your own individual connection with God. You don't need a priest to work with as a go-between. It's you and your relationship with God. Whether you're a queen or some random peasant, you could pray at home, read the Bible on your own, and that is enough to get you into heaven.
Right. And part of making God accessible to everyone was the belief that the Bible should be, and any other religious text, should be available in the language that the people in that country spoke. So for England, in English, which meant you didn't have to understand Latin to read the Bible and make your own assumptions about how you interpret that. So that just meant like any fucking peasant that was lucky enough to know how to read, so still a little bit gatekept, but more accessible, could, in her view, get a Bible and not need the church. The priests had a big issue with this whole idea.
Because gatekeeping. Yes. The disclaimer, all right. We're not here to hate on any Catholics. Great people. No. Lovely. Love you.
My dad, my stepdad, all my dad's relatives, all my stepdad's relatives are Catholic. That's not what we're trying to say.
I have multiple BFFs who are Catholic. So this is nothing against that.
But I will say in the text that we're looking at here, I agree more with Catherine's beliefs. Mm-hmm. Like her way of looking at things.
Yes.
But that's also coming from 2025.
Yeah, right. We're looking at it 400 years later. But during this time and for a very long time before, the Catholic Church had relied very heavily on their followers, believing that they need a priest in order to interpret the Bible for them. Mm-hmm. This is how the church ended up getting so rich and powerful. Hey, you got to come to church every weekend or else you're not going to know anything about God because only these guys can read the word of God. And, when you get here, oh yeah, by the way, 10% please. And
Yes, and
that's how the church amassed so many big buildings, so much money. Like,
right.
how do you think they really built all that?
In case anybody doesn't know, Nathan means 10% of your income. It was
Yes.
believed that you should give 10% of your income to the church so they could keep going on and interpreting the Bible for you.
Let's call it a Jesus tax.
A Jesus tax. Yeah, sure. Whereas Catherine's beliefs didn't include a Jesus tax because you could just stay at home and read the Bible.
Mhm. Who likes taxes? Nobody likes taxes.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have to pay a tax, you don't have to stay home.
In a world where there was no separation of church and state, church was the state, you could see how this could get really controversial and really political really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's the whole system. Like you're literally
Yeah.
saying, let's break the system, essentially.
Right. So the philosophy that Catherine believed in that we're talking about is known as the doctrine of justification by faith alone. Conservatives in the court that really were really hoping after Henry VIII died would go back to being just full-on Catholic, were not into this. They were like, this queen is taking, because this is where her books were. She would take old texts that had been put in Latin and she would translate them. But the thing about Latin is a dead language.
Yeah.
And what that means is that, you know how Webster's Dictionary puts out a new word of the year every
Yeah.
year?
Bootylicious.
You're never going to
have bootylicious.
There's nothing in Latin for bootylicious.
Nope.
Yes, that is the perfect way to explain a dead language. Bootylicious, not a word. And so it's just as part of translating something from a dead language into an alive language is that you are going to put your own spin on it. So these conservatives are like, this queen is translating Latin text with a Protestant lens. What the fuck is happening here? She wants these peasants just to read this at home and make their own decisions? No.
Oh, no.
Not the peasants. It's okay. Most of them couldn't read
Anyway,
anyways.
like you've already screwed them over for letting them not be able to read, so it doesn't matter, And the more old-fashioned in Henry's court wanted to gatekeep the Bible and theology as a whole, they wanted to, pearly gates keep it. Maybe.
Pearly gates keep. Yep.
Pearly gates
Let's
keep.
move on. So this is a really bold move on Catherine's part. Henry had declared a whole load of reformist books heretical. And so she's kind of playing a dangerous game here,
Yeah.
She's kind of using queen privilege. She's walking a tightrope.
Tipping on the tightrope. Yep.
Tipping on the tightrope in these books that she is publishing with Henry's permission. She couldn't just publish books without his permission,
Mm-hmm.
And so she's becoming more emboldened, and she's, without saying it outright, she's really pushing her agenda.
And while our girl is getting bolder and bolder in her religious views coming to light, there is a divide growing wider and wider at the court. Re-enter our previously mentioned Bishop Stevie Gardner.
Bishop Stevie G. So he is butthurt. Because remember, he had this one vision of Catherine in his head. She is not at all what he thought. He is pissed when he realized. He feels like she purposely pulled one over on him.
Catfished. He felt catfished.
Catherine fished.
Yes, absolutely. He was Catherine fished.
And he's like, hey, you know what? The king has been turned against so many wives before. What makes this one invincible?
Ooh.
Like, I bet if I wait long enough, she's going to fuck up. And then just like the sneaky snake I am, the gardener snake? I don't know. I'm going to swivel on in and I'm going to bring this bitch down.
I'm a sneaky snake.
I'm a sneaky Stephen the sneaky snake. Okay, so I don't have a segue here. Let's just take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we will be right back with Catherine's downfall.
Sneaky snake.
Sneaky snake.
some things work better together. Like NARS's Soft Matte Complete Concealer and Radiant Creamy Concealer. Soft Matte Complete Concealer erases and blurs imperfections with full coverage. Then, Radiant Creamy Concealer evens and brightens with a luxurious texture and radiant finish. 2 concealers, 1 flawless look. Perfect for a no foundation base. NARS, better together. Visit Ulta to shop now.
Spring is here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
And we're back. Picture it. The year is 1546. The King Henry VIII, he's not a healthy man, okay? I know we keep bringing it up, but it keeps being true. And he is very prone in his illness to violent mood swings.
You don't say.
I do say. But one thing that still makes him happy is his wonderful wife, Catherine. So he kind of lets her do whatever she wants.
Love this. And
Right?
you could argue at this point, Catherine thinks she's invincible because the king let me do whatever I want. And sure, Protestants are literally getting tortured and burnt at the stake, but that wouldn't happen to her.
No.
So she starts hosting a noble lady book club where all her ladies in waiting and her friends get together every day and read these heretical books that literally anyone else would get arrested for owning. Then, after ye old book club, she'd go sit with Henry and they'd have a little kiki and have a little debate over religion, philosophy, whatever tickled their fancy.
I love that you used kiki because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
They're just having a little kiki.
Yeah,
Yeah.
getting together and shooting the shit.
Yeah. Shooting the shit, talking about religion. And Catherine does get bolder and bolder with her views in these debates. She feels like she is on fire. She can do no wrong. And she is like, I am going to make this man see my ways. Because remember, she thinks God has put her here on purpose.
Mhm.
And people tend to get a little reckless and not necessarily think with the logical part of their brain when the God complex part of their brain has taken over. She honestly, a big thing for her, which again, I completely agree here. She thought that it was so against the teaching of Christ to execute people that you believed were heretics.
Well, I mean, there's this whole thou shalt not murder thing that kind of sticks out in my head a little bit. So anyway.
So that was one of her big things with this specific king. So I'm not saying I get it. But so she thinks, hey, if I could just make him see the error of the ways and let's not kill people that disagree with us on religion, it's a win.
Yeah.
And so she feels like God is protecting her, and that's why she's getting away with all of this.
This brings me back to the vision that she had whenever she first was with, getting with Henry, of, she had this vision of God, and it's like,
yeah.
Oh, so she thinks she's here to unite England, to bring everybody together. She does it with the royal family. She's trying to do it with Catholicism and Protestantism.
And everything has worked for her.
And it's all working. Maybe God did say, hey, girl, make him
Yeah.
stop chopping people's heads off. And she's like, as long as I can do a Catholic Protestantism thing. And he's like, yeah, we got it.
Yeah, sure. You got it, girl. Yeah.
But something we do need to learn about Henry VIII is Catherine at this point is like, let me go persuade him. And Henry VIII is easily persuadable at this point.
Yeah.
He's so paranoid, and she has been kikiing with him forever that she can plant the seed in his head and say something and he'll believe it after long enough, right?
Well, yes, but it's not just her. He is easily persuaded by lots of people.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, we saw head choppy.
And that's where the problem lies. So they've been kikiing. One night after dinner, he goes back to his room and he's just in a shitty mood. Look, Who amongst us hasn't been in pain from an injury, being on your period, whatever, and just being in a little shitty mood and maybe run your mouth a little bit more than you meant to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes back to his room and he kind of talks shit on Catherine for a minute. It wasn't anything big. He just is kind of like being like, this bitch has got a big head. Unfortunately, he happens to say it in front of our frenemy, Sneaky Snake, Stephen Gardner.
Oh, no.
I know.
So Henry says sarcastically, a good hearing it is when a woman becomes such clerks, and a thing much to my comfort to be taught by my wife, which was sarcastic.
Can you translate
Yeah,
that into
like,
modern day for me?
what did you just say, Henry? Qu'est-ce que c'est? Please
Qu'est-ce que
don't
c'est?
get into a war with me because I just spoke French. This was all sarcastic of Henry, and this is 16th century way of saying, who the fuck does she think she is to try to school me?
Yeah. And so it appears that for the first time in their like 2.5 years of marriage, this is like the first time that if Henry had ever said anything less than stellar about her, this is the first time he said it in front of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And Sneaky Snake Steve was like, oh, well, look, I wasn't going to bring it up. But since you brought it up, let me tell you about some shit I've been hearing.
And this shit gets dark. There was
I
this
know.
woman named Anne Askew who had already been arrested for not shutting her big sexy mouth and preaching about Protestantism. And there was this huge conspiracy that she had ties with Catherine Parr, which, isn't totally unfounded.
No, I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, so Anne Askew's, like, brother was, like, a page at court or something like that.
Okay.
So people were like, she's talking to the queen, and it's like, no.
No, they have nothing to do with each other. They have no idea who she is.
We aren't going to have a whole lot of time to go to Anne Askew's life. So I thought we had a Patreon episode on her.
No, we don't.
So when we're on summer break, before we get into our cult shit, let's do a deep dive on Anne Askew. How about that?
Done and done.
Done. But what you need to know for this episode, she was this very charismatic woman who was also a preacher of the Protestant Reformation movement, and she had been arrested. And Stephen Gardner was like, hey, Henry VIII, you're in a shitty mood. We got this woman in the tower who we think has a very loose connection with the queen. We think she might know something about like a plot to overthrow you that maybe the queen is doing. Can we torture the fuck out of this lady?
And you know what? Henry VIII, being paranoid as fuck, leaned over and went, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do it. Go ahead.
Sounds like a plan.
Carry on.
Again, we don't have time for this side quest. Find us on Patreon this summer. We'll go into it. But she was questioned and tortured, and it was like, the torturing will stop once you implicate the queen. We just want to know about the queen and her heresy.
Okay, look, me personally, torture me, and I'll pretty much admit to anything.
You know, you torture me right now, and I'll be like, yeah, Catherine Parr. What do you want to know about Catherine Parr? She did it.
She's so rude. She's just so rude. She told me no.
Yeah.
But look, Anne Askew was not a fucking snitch. Also, she was one of the only women ever officially tortured by the state in England.
Yeah.
And she went on to burn at the stake for, not saying a damn thing and not being a snitch.
She had a big sexy mouth, but she kept it shut when it came to not implicating people. And I love that for her story. Love that for her plot. Could never be me. You even like fuck with my cuticles and I'll be like, what do you want to know? I'll tell you anything.
Not the nails. Not the nails. Now, Catherine would have known about Anne Askew and would have probably been saying prayers for her in, her Heretic Lady book club. But she probably didn't know that some really high-ranking dudes were asking Anne Askew about her connections to Catherine.
She also didn't know that when she went like out with her ladies and her rooms were empty, that Sneaky Steve was coming in and raiding her rooms. and he found those banned books pretty easily. They weren't hidden.
I'm just now imagining you calling your husband Sneaky Steve.
Sneaky Steve. I'm going to see him later tonight and be like, Sneaky Steve.
Sneaky Steve. Gardner and his guys ran back to Henry and are like, okay, here's the evidence that we found against her. We think your wife is a heretic. Can we arrest her? And Henry was like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Sure. Whatever. What? Yeah. But here's the thing. After Henry gave the okay to arrest Catherine, his doctor came in. His doctor was a guy named Dr. Wendy. And it was known at court that Dr. Wendy and Catherine Parr had a very friendly relationship. They were buddies.
Well, they're probably spending time together because he's sick all the time. So, of course, they're friends.
No, but Dr. Wendy is friends with Catherine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like
they're
if
talking
Henry's
about
sick,
Henry's
yeah,
sick. Yeah.
There's got to be a bond there because he's passed out in pain, and they're like, "So, tell me about your day."
Exactly. So they're friendly, and so of anybody in the world for Henry to decide to unload himself to, look, was Henry sick, and did this guy kind of suck? Yeah. I think he did this on purpose, though. So he unloads to Dr. Wendy of just like, this is what's on my mind with Catherine. I've told them that they could raid her rooms. They found some heretical books. I told her they can arrest her. If only she would come to me and apologize, I would just pull out the arrest warrant. But then, before Dr. Wendy leaves, he makes him swear that he's not going to tell Catherine about this conversation.
What a little bitch. What a little bitch. I love it.
And then that same day, the decree for the arrest was found right outside of Catherine's door.
Oh, no.
As if someone just was walking by and it fell out of their pocket. Of course, somebody in Catherine's staff finds it and brings it to her.
And y'all, once our girl lays eyes on this arrest warrant, everything becomes really real.
Shit.
Yeah, that is literally. Oh, yeah, my head's getting chopped off.
Oh shit. Yes, like everything. I'm just imagining her vision going blurry. Do you know what I mean? Of just like panic setting in, and this safe little bubble that you thought you lived in has just been bloop, popped.
Ooh. So she's running through her room, finding any sort of book that could be considered heretical, and she's just like, throw it in the fire. Just go. Just
burn
who
it.
cares?
This is the first edition. Burn it. Yes.
She is straight up crashing out. But can we blame her?
Now, this is where Catherine Parr and I align. Because Catherine Parr never wavered in her beliefs. But she is not a martyr. She held her beliefs very firmly for the rest of her life, but she wanted that life to not end anytime soon. And so she is like, I am going to eat crow. I'm going to do what I need to do. Burn the books. What is the damage control that can be done here? It's an interesting parallel.
It's an interesting parallel here when you think of Anne Boleyn or Catherine Howard. Both of them, when they realized they were in trouble, frantically tried to speak with the king. He refused to see them. But with Catherine Parr, he was just like, hey, babe, what's up? Why are you so upset?
Yeah, all she had to do was come into his room and be like, hey, can we talk? And he was just like, yep. So there is a very famous documentation of this conversation. But the thing is, the guy who wrote it down wasn't in the room. So I don't know why this script that this guy has written has been taken verbatim to heart. So we are going to do a modern reenactment of this script, because why do ye old English if that's maybe not even exactly what they said? So Nathan, do you want to be Henry or Catherine?
Man, I don't know. How do I feel today? I'll go for Henry, although I'm feeling very Catherine today. Catherine, you feel more Catherine, so I'll go with Henry.
Okay.
Hey, babe, why are you so upset?
Hey, I feel like you're mad at me.
Why would I be mad at you?
I feel like maybe I overstepped.
Can you be more specific? And could you maybe ungrovel a little bit while you're doing it?
Yes, I can grovel so much. Okay, so, when we debate at dinner, you know I'm just humoring you, right? I you know, I don't know shit about fuck. I am just a dumb little woman. This dumb little uterus and this dumb little brain. I can't do math. I love chocolate. Like,
Go
what?
on, go on, keep it.
Yes, I don't know shit about fuck. And so, like, when I was just talking to you to keep your mind off of you being in pain, I didn't think you were actually paying attention to what I had to say. You know us women. You know we love yapping, right?
Well,
Yap, 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 yap.
you did a lot of yapping, for someone who doesn't know shit about fuck.
I know. Uterus, I promise that was just to take your mind off of things. I'm not going to yap anymore unless you want me to yap. My yapping days are over.
No more yapping?
On God, if that's what you want.
All right, we are so good. Go get some rest. You look a little tired. Love you. XOXO. And that was Queen's Podcast Theater. Now, this is where Henry VIII turns into a messy queen. It's his messy queen
He's always
era.
been a messy queen.
Yeah, he's always been a messy queen. He doesn't tell Sneaky Snake Steve Gardiner that he and Catherine have kissed and made up. So the next day, Henry and Catherine were walking in the gardens, the gardener snake, and the gardener and his friends and a bunch of soldiers show up to arrest Catherine.
Could you imagine if you're Catherine? Like, just seeing this, this posse here to arrest you? Because you might be thinking Henry's pulled a fast one on you because his track record.
Unless he's let her in on the deal. Unless he knows that this is going to happen. So maybe he set this up. I don't know. He's crazy.
We don't know. But to Catherine's relief, as the soldiers come up and they're like, we have the arrest warrant for the queen, Henry flies off the fucking handle at them. And he calls the guy leading the charge an errant knave, beast, and fool.
Okay, in English, please. I mean, sorry, that is English. But...
Yes. In 2025, that just means, you fucking dumbass, what the fuck are you doing?
Okay, thank you for that translation. And let's unpack this. Henry had plenty of time to tell his dudes that the arrest was off, but he's in his messy queen era. And I think he wanted to remind both Catherine and Gardner Snake that even though he might not be as with it as he used to be, he's still the HBIC or the HKIC. I don't know. And also, he probably loved the drama. And he loved the drama.
I wish we knew his full chart. He's a Cancer, is his sun's sign.
Okay, so that's a little sensitive. Yeah.
So the rest of Catherine's time as queen is kind of uneventful because bitch laid low. And do you blame her?
No, I know. No. She didn't just lay high, she laid low.
Catherine had learned her lesson. Hey, maybe God wasn't working through me. Or maybe God wanted a martyr and he got the wrong girl. It's not me. So I'm just going to keep my head down.
There were rumors that Henry was planning to divorce Catherine because they started spending less and less time together, but we really have no evidence that he was. Mm-hmm. They were spending less and less time together because Henry's health was taking a fucking nosedive. Mm-hmm. And he was mainly spending time with his doctors, but Catherine would have been hyper aware of these rumors, though she never did anything, though, to acknowledge them, which I think is just another strategic thing.
One of the ladies that he was supposedly considering divorcing her and marrying was one of Catherine's ladies in waiting, which would have been his normal.
Surprise.
But I just wonder if they ever talked about it, but that's a rabbit hole we don't have time for. In December 1546, Catherine was chilling at court with the whole family, getting ready for Christmas. Tudor court did Christmas like balls to the wall, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But then Henry's dudes come in. So I guess I imagine she's like literally hanging stockings and stuff. And they come in and they're like, you gotta go. And she's like, wait, what? And they're like, he doesn't want you here for Christmas. You and your ladies and the Princess Mary, and just basically everyone associated with you. They don't want you here. You got to go to Greenwich to celebrate just a ladies' Christmas. Get the fuck out.
Oh, this would have been a big what the fuck moment for Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was
it was,
already still like nervous that she might at any moment be back on shaky ground.
yeah, beheaded.
Yeah.
And this is huge gossip. The king sent the queen away and didn't even come and say goodbye to her. He must be about to divorce her in her mind. This would have been a huge hit on her ego.
Mhm.
But she did what they told her. She played along.
She's like, okay, well, then I'm going to go to Greenwich because that's what you're telling me to do. And I like where my head is on my body. So on her way out of court, she did see an old familiar face setting up shop at the king's side because he has brought back someone from overseas. Do you remember Thomas Seymour?
Yeah, the dude that she was supposed to marry.
Mm-hmm. The only man that she's ever actually been in love with. Yeah, he's back at court. He served his country so well overseas and in that short little war with France that he's been given a really, really sweet job at court. And so, like, as she's leaving, she's like seeing him and he's seeing her being embarrassed, being sent away. And so, and then it's also Christmas. So she is just full of emotion, embarrassed.
Not on Christmas.
And confused. And Santa's on his way. And it's just so much going on.
Well, Catherine really had no reason to feel disgrace. Henry wasn't mad at her. He's just dying, girl. Catherine knew he was sick, but he purposely hid how sick he was from her. So that Christmas and New Year's, just so much anxiety for her, just sitting there thinking, why haven't I heard from him? What's going on? Am I going to die? Is something happening? What's going on? Like, I would be bottle of Xanax a day. Holy shit.
Oh, sure. Ye old Xanax. So what was happening is that the guys around Henry were blocking everyone else out because they knew that while he was still alive, they had a chance to persuade his final will and testament to be exactly what he wanted. Namely, who was going to be regent when Henry died.
We'll talk about Edward Seymour way more in the final episode, but he was the eldest brother to Jane Seymour, Thomas Seymour, and Mary thinks that Edward actually forged the will after Henry died, but we can't say anything like that for sure.
This is really interesting because Henry did have a rubber stamp that he used to sign most documents because he had arthritis in his hands really bad, but commonly you would have still for your will and testament just powered through the arthritis to sign, but his will was signed with the rubber stamp, so a lot of people
I'm not saying
so what we do know is that in late December, early January, Henry rewrote his will, and any hope Catherine had to be named regent was just right out the window. But honestly, as good as Catherine would have been as regent, and I do believe that she would have been good as regent, this whole ordeal with nearly being arrested did kind of make her a little less hungry for power.
And finally, in mid-January, Catherine and Mary, who had been staying together this whole time, they were summoned to join the king. And everybody at this point knows that it's their time to say their final goodbyes to the king.
Right. And you would assume a conversation between husband and wife, like partners like this, that their last conversation would be like touching, like something emotional, but that's not really the vibe here. It was much more transactional.
Yeah, it's kind of starting to make sense now because their kikiing was very political banter, very, so it makes sense why their last conversation would be very similar. It's like this cold, dry, weird thing because there's this contemporary chronicler that basically says that he told her that he was going to give her an allowance of 7,000 pounds a year and that she could remarry if she wanted to. Basically told her to have a good life. It does kind of feel a little-ish like it's a you know, when a spouse dies, the other one's like, hey, you can get remarried. I love you. You can do these things. Like, I hope you
Yeah.
have a really good life. And then he told her, you know, get the fuck out because I don't want you to see me die.
I don't want you to see me dying. I don't want you to see me being ugly. Yeah, like, now, Catherine was a wreck while he was on his deathbed, but I feel like that's just, even if you're not necessarily romantically in love with somebody, your life has been tied to
Yeah.
this guy for the last years, you know? Like, it's only
Yeah.
human to be upset. But yeah, if my partner was on his deathbed, I would wanna talk about more than the allowance. You know,
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, maybe.
But Catherine was about to be the first Dowager Queen since Elizabeth Woodville.
Ooh. I mean, I don't like that.
And did things go
No.
smoothly for Elizabeth
No, they
Woodville?
didn't.
No. So she's probably got a little bit of anxiety going on there, yeah.
Yeah, probably so. Now, but also she's isolated, so none of the men who are actually going to be in control are literally talking to her. So she
Right.
and Mary and her other ladies are just sitting around guessing what's going to happen. But what we're getting at is her last weeks as queen are again filled with anxiety, worry. What's going to happen to me? Am I going to die? Is somebody going to
Yeah.
try to do this to me? What? Blah.
Yes. And then Henry VIII, the once golden prince of England, the more recently compared to Nero, king of England, died in his bed at his royal estate, January 28th, 1547. He was 55 years old.
Thank God. Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry.
Sure did.
His son, Edward, who viewed Catherine as his mother, was now Edward VI. And for the third time in her life, Catherine is a widow.
When they announced the Regency Council, Catherine was actually shocked to learn that among the 16 dudes appointed to the Regency Council, she was completely left out.
What?
Yeah, I don't think she was expected to be, like, at the top of the call sheet.
Somewhere.
She expected to be somewhere on the call sheet. She's sitting there being like, okay, but have any of y'all ever actually been regent before? No. I'm the only one in the whole fucking country who's ever been regent before, and I've just been left completely out of this? What the fuck?
And they just totally ignored her.
Yep.
Totally. Just like, what? New phone? Who dis? We don't know for sure what Catherine did in reaction to learning that she'd been completely left out of this 9-year-old Edward's reign, but we know she was pissed. And so was her little stepdaughter and dear friend Mary.
So who was going to be the main guy running the show? Because, yeah, there's this 16-person regency, but there's always going to be one person that's, like, in charge. We mentioned him briefly earlier, but it's the king's uncle, Edward Seymour, the Duke of Somerset, a man who Catherine did not care for. She also did not particularly care for his wife, Anne Stanhope, either.
You know how today we might look at people who chase celebrities and call them starfuckers? That's kind of how Catherine viewed the Duke and Duchess of Somerset. They're starfuckers.
Yeah.
Who would do whatever they had to do to stay in proximity to the throne. Like, they're just going to do what they have to. So to say that she goes into Edward's reign as king with a bitter taste in her mouth might be a bit of an understatement.
Side note, I think it's really important to note and kind of interesting. So Catherine's a hardcore Protestant, and the new starfucker regent and his wife are as well. But the closest companion she had at the time at court was Mary, a Catholic. So they are not just going off of beliefs. They are also quite on vibes. And like, the vibes are off with these people. They're weird. They're just here for the money and power. Yeah.
Anyway, Catherine was not alone in being someone, left out of power who thought she deserved a seat at the table.
Right.
Remember when Catherine was left regent and Henry went to France? Remember that time when he tried to start a war?
Yeah.
Well, Thomas Seymour, Catherine's old boyfriend, had proved himself during that campaign. And ever since then, he had been, back at court, getting lots and lots of praise, getting lots of attention from the king.
So when the Regency Council that Henry supposedly crafted himself, quote unquote, crafted himself, was announced, and his name also wasn't on the 16 people, he was pissed. Maybe pissed off enough to write a letter to his old girlfriend.
Oh, and Catherine was probably looking for someone to talk to at this moment because she's got a lot of frustrations and loneliness and she's being excluded. And also, she's single again.
Okay.
If you'd like it, then you should have put a ring on it.
Oh, he tried to, but...
Yeah, he did, and she said no. But she's only 35, which we know now, not back then, now is the sexual peak for a woman, so she's ready to lean in.
Yes. He's single and hot and looking for a powerful wife. She's single and hot and looking to finally have sex with somebody that she actually wants to have sex with for the first time in her life. And they both also have an axe to grind with this current administration.
And you know what? I think that's a good place to leave it for this week.
I think that is a good place to leave it. All right. We will catch y'all next time for our Season 8 finale. Cheers.
Hey everyone, it's Dan Souza from America's Test Kitchen. I'm super excited to let you all know that we're launching a new video podcast that takes you behind the scenes into the messy, imperfect, but riveting day-to-day life right here in our test kitchen. Not only do I get to talk to my colleagues about the latest taste test they attended.
I just came from a tasting of salted caramel apple pie bars and then roasted garlic, so I apologize.
Or about a recipe they're developing.
The thing about this recipe is it's a secret. The restaurateur refuses to tell people what her secret ingredients are.
We also chat with amazing guests from the culinary world and beyond.
The lamest joke I've ever said. I said to Marie Bamford.
Great.
It's definitely
great.
Thanks. Make sure to subscribe to In the Test Kitchen so you don't miss an episode. You can watch In the Test Kitchen on YouTube and Spotify and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Can't wait to see you in the Test Kitchen.